front of the machine. So there are some advantages for sure. I'm not going to argue with you. There are advantages to putting the final drives at the rear of the machine. Now, what you find a lot of times on job sites, when there's just that know-it-all guy that needs to come over and tell you how wrong you are, or if you're in the wonderful world of YouTube, by God, I can only imagine the comments we're going to get on this video, because people love to walk up to you with their big neck beard and tell you you're doing it wrong because you're digging over your final drives. I'm here to tell you that's a giant myth. I'm sorry, it is, guys. Everyone's got this anecdotal story about how someone they know somewhere back in the day, or somewhere their grandpappy knew someone that had to replace a final drive because they were digging over the final drives. I'm telling you right now, those stories, I have yet to find one actually in the wild.
Okay, yeah, there's that story. And Brian, I have a story for you. You now know somebody that has had a direct issue with what happens when you dig over the drive end of the excavators. I've got some explanations on some other things too, my own ideas and thoughts. But for the most part, you are right. It doesn't matter on the smaller machines if you dig over the rear of the tracks. So here's the story. We have this guy that used to work for us, and he went and worked for another larger company. Hard to believe there was another company that was larger, but the company was digging a very deep trench, putting in sewers about like 36 something feet deep, open cutting V ditching. And they were running, this guy, Buffalo was his name, well, we called him anyways, and he was running a Komatsu 1100. And he dug over the rear of the tracks. Well, on these larger machines, the drive hangs on the inside of the tracks. So the drive is wider than the tracks are, so they're exposed on the inside of the tracks. So what had happened was, this guy has a bucket that was just a little bit narrower than the inside of the tracks, but wider than the drives. You can imagine where I'm going with this. So as he's digging, and he's a bit of a cowboy, he's digging, he thinks he's the greatest of all time. He's good, yes, granted, but makes mistakes on occasion. And unfortunately, he made a mistake of taking a scoop and pulling it up between the tracks where the bucket fit between the tracks, but not the drives, and wound up ripping out both drive motors from this Komatsu 1100. Huge machine, and it shut down the crew for weeks. It stopped that portion of the project for a while. So that is one issue that you can run into. And I was there, I saw it, and I saw the aftermath and all the garbage that comes out of those final drives when you destroy them with a bucket. So now you know somebody that has directly been there when something has happened from digging over the final drives. Now, to get to a reply to the rest of the video, does it matter on these smaller machines and whatnot? It does not matter one bit. I dig over the final drives every so often. You just wind up in situations where it's much easier just to pull in backwards with the final drive, take your scoops, do whatever you need to get done, and then you're done with it. But on the most part, personally, I drive over the front idlers for a couple of reasons. So the main reason being, if you actually measure where the house of the machine sits on the undercarriage, a lot of the medium-sized machines, like the 350, Cat 350, old 350 I ran and stuff, and the old Cats and stuff, they were actually, the house was set towards the rear drives about 4 inches. So the front of the rig, the front out to the idlers, is actually longer than it is to the rear drives, which gives you leverage for pulling power and lifting power. So, and that is one of the big things for me that gives me, it became a habit. I always did it because the way the machines were designed, that's why I did it that way. Also, if you think of it, I'll throw up a picture here. Okay, And then the reason things like that happen is because you've got your tracks backwards. So in an emergency situation, if you're used to tracking backwards by reaching up and pulling the levers backwards or stepping on your pedals to go backwards, and you've got both your hands on the controls, an emergency happens and you step and your tracks are backwards and you step on the bottom of your pedals to go backwards, but your tracks are spun the wrong way, you're now going into the hole, making things a bigger problem. And I have seen that happen, and I have that picture, machine upside down in the hole. That's always fun. But those are the two main reasons I always dig with the drives behind me. It's for me, it's just, if you just do it always that way, you just don't have issues with in emergency situations. That's my main thing, is in emergency situations, what is your natural tendency to do is to reach out, grab those levers, pull them backwards, or step on the pedals to go away from the problem. If the tracks are spun the wrong way, you're making the problem worse.